I slammed the kitchen door and froze. My father-in-law, Frank, was crouched by the cabinet, his hands shaking as he rifled through envelopes. The blood from the bruise on my wife's arm, the one he'd hit, still burned in my mind. He didn't see me yet. I held my breath. Every second stretched like a rope fraying under pressure. One wrong move, one sound, and everything would crumble. I remembered the day this began. It started innocuously. Sarah had come home with a small mark on her forearm, faint but dark enough to make me pause. She laughed it off, said she bumped into the cabinet. But her laugh didn't reach her eyes. I had noticed Frank's behavior changing too. The way he lingered over our finances when he visited. His casual mentions of the old Miller estate, the inheritance left to Sarah. He asked about the house in ways that didn't feel innocent, as if he were mapping it, memorizing its weak points. I told myself I was imagining things. But then came the first real clue. The missing checkbook. I had been at work when Sarah called, her voice tight. "Ben, someone's been in our drawers." I raced home, the drawers were open, some papers scattered. Nothing obvious was stolen. Yet, but the sense of violation burned sharper than any bruise. And then, Frank showed up unannounced, casual as a Sunday visitor, claiming he'd just dropped by. I watched him closely, his hands flexed unnaturally, his eyes darting toward the small safe we kept hidden behind the books. "You okay?" he asked Sarah, his tone sweet as syrup. I wanted to hit him. Instead, I nodded, hiding the storm brewing inside me. Twist, one came quietly. A week later, a letter arrived, an unsigned, typed notice from an attorney. Our names were being removed from the Miller estate's final distribution. Frank had begun the process behind our backs. I confronted him. "Frank, what is this?" I asked, showing him the letter. He leaned back in his chair, smiling faintly. Practiced, "Ben, I think there's been some confusion. That letter? Probably a clerical error." I wanted to believe him, my gut screamed not to. I started noticing the little things. The way he'd casually suggest we tighten the finances when he came over. The way he watched Sarah while she slept, a predator masking his family. Then came mini twist 2. One evening, I found him snooping through Sarah's laptop. He froze mid-scroll when I appeared in the doorway. "Just checking the bills," he muttered. The lies were sloppy. His breath smelled of whiskey. His fingerprints smeared across her private files. I realized then, he was systematic. Patient. He wasn't clumsy. He was deliberate. My frustration gave way to fear. I started recording him, audio, video, anything. Every conversation, every subtle threat captured. I learned his patterns, the way he thought he could manipulate me by acting confused or charming. I realized the bruise wasn't an accident, it was intimidation. A reminder, he could hurt her, and I wouldn't stop him if I played his game poorly. The turning point came on a rainy Tuesday. Frank cornered Sarah in the garage. "I just want what's mine," he said, voice low, dangerous. I slammed the door behind me and stepped between them. Sarah didn't cry this time, her eyes were steady. The bruise was fading, but its meaning hadn't. "Not a step closer," I said. For the first time, Frank hesitated. Mini-twist 3 arrived when I realized I wasn't the only one paying attention. Our neighbor, a retired banker named Charles, had noticed Frank's pattern. "He's clever, Ben, but not invisible. He's trying to isolate you, to push you out." Charles gave me a stack of papers, old documents showing Frank's attempts to manipulate the estate, falsify signatures, and even bribe minor officials. The evidence was enough to ruin him legally, but not yet to confront him. I needed a plan, precise and untraceable. The months that followed were quiet but intense. I studied Frank the way a chess player studies an opponent. Every visit he made, every offhand remark, every micro-expression I recorded. He never knew I was cataloging his moves, never suspected the web closing in. Sarah didn't know everything. I wanted her to feel safe while I dismantled him. She deserved that. And then came the execution. I invited him over under the pretense of a family dinner. I had the papers ready, the cameras ready, and the subtle signs that would trap him. I didn't confront him immediately. I waited, letting him relax, letting him show his true self. It was subtle at first. He reached for a check, accidentally knocking it from the table. I noticed the slight hesitation in his eyes, the twitch of his smile that betrayed guilt. "Frank," I said lightly, "you might want to sit down for this." I handed him the files from Charles, the evidence, the recordings. His face paled. I didn't need to raise my voice. The truth itself was a hammer. "I can explain," he stammered. I let him finish. I let him dig the hole deeper. Then I revealed the lawyer waiting on the line. Someone Frank couldn't bribe, manipulate, or charm. By the time authorities arrived, he was calm but defeated. Every carefully laid trap he thought he had for us was now his own cage. Here's the final twist. He wasn't just after money. He had planned to manipulate Sarah into relinquishing control of her inheritance entirely, using fear and subtle abuse to bend her will. But he underestimated one thing, our patience and preparation. I hadn't just caught him, I had anticipated his moves, like a shadow on water. In the second twist, he thought he could escape without consequences. But the evidence not only secured the estate for Sarah, it also implicated him in several fraudulent activities spanning years. Freedom wasn't just denied, it was obliterated. Frank was taken away quietly. Not with the dramatic shouts or struggle I imagined, but silently, the way shadows retreat at dawn. I watched him leave, a man diminished, no longer a threat. Sarah hugged me afterward, bruises fading, her hand in mine. The relief was deep but not sweet. Sweetness would come later, once the fear fully dissipated. I felt it then, not triumph, but clarity. Justice wasn't messy or loud. It was precise, cold, and clean. Weeks later, the house was calm. Frank's presence lingered only in memory. Sarah smiled freely, laughed without hesitation, her hand in mine as we signed the estate papers, officially transferring control entirely to her. I knew Frank would never see it coming. Our quiet, meticulous dismantling of his schemes, the trap that was invisible until it snapped. And I knew one last thing. No man who harms the people you love should ever walk away thinking he is safe. I poured a glass of whiskey and looked out over the backyard. Some battles are loud, some are silent. This one had been silent, and it was finished. I locked the door. No one would be coming back. Not him, not fear, not doubt. The bruise faded, but the lesson remained. I whispered to the empty room, to the silence, to the truth that had carried us through. Some debts are paid in shadows.